Hey, it's me, Courtney, and I've got to be honest, I'm feeling really frustrated. And my frustration is coming from the fact that I feel like, as business owners, especially as women and service providers, the people I talk to and work with and who are in my audience and I have for over a decade are, and the people I'm friends with, right? Like, I just think we're thinking about business wrong. I think we're thinking about it way too small. And specifically, I think our core issue, our core mistake is that we are over identifying with our businesses. We are considering ourselves and our businesses interchangeable. Our identities are wrapped up in our businesses. And more importantly, our entire business's identity is us. If you stopped working for 2 weeks, tell me the things that would still happen in your business if you stopped working for 2 weeks, a month, 2 months. Now, that might not sound like a big deal if nothing would happen for a few weeks. That might sound normal for those of you who've been in the entrepreneur space for a while. It's like, well, duh, nothing would happen. Like, I've always been an entrepreneur. I've never really been a full-time employee. So for me, the idea of taking 2 weeks off and like I still get paid and I don't have to worry about anything, that sounds crazy. I'm not familiar with that lifestyle. But as entrepreneurs, we just sort of assume that we have to work and we always have to work. And this isn't even about different ways of doing business or at a certain point you shift the way you do business. This is about fundamentally how service providers and the typical online business owner is approaching business in a way that is honestly not a business, is literally creating a job or even a career, yay, fancy type of job. But in a career, if you stop working in the job, you no longer get paid the money. And everyone I know approaches their businesses the same way. And the reason they approach it this way is because when you started your business, it was because you wanted to, because you love the type of work or you're passionate about the stuff that you do. You want to do that type of work and you're excited about the business. But what you didn't realize is that your entire business cannot live off of your energy. It cannot live off of your passion and desire for the topic, which is not going to be consistent over time every single day, every single week, every single month. And so now you've created something that you have built everything around needing you to the point where it's hard to even hand things off because you do things at the last minute or you do them differently every time or they're not documented or it's based on, your expertise and intuitive way of doing things and not a system. And so nobody can help you. Congratulations, you're the expert. You're one of a kind. No one else can do it. And that might sound fine for a little while. You might be like, so what? What's the big deal? That might sound fine for a year, maybe 2 years, maybe 5 years. Well, what happens if something happens to you? What happens if you get sick? What happens if something happens in your family and you need to take time off? What happens if, you just don't feel like working or need to take a vacation? Anything. Which, by the way, I'm describing the freedom that we all say is the reason we started our businesses. But we didn't mean that we really want freedom. We meant that in the moment, we don't want to have a boss. But that's not freedom. That's childish. And I get it. I love instant gratification. I don't want a boss either. Like I said, I've never had a real job. But freedom doesn't mean just doing whatever you want all the time. Because what you do when you build a business that way is you build a reactive business that is now 100% dependent on you. I think it is so normalized in the service provider space to build this way. And I say build in quotes because we're not really building anything. To essentially make ourselves the center of the business and everything's reliant on us because we think, well, I don't want a huge business. I don't need to make $1 million. I don't want to build a big team. I don't want all of that. It just becomes normalized. Like that we think that our job is doing the delivery of the work. We think that our job is, I'm a copywriter, so my job is copywriting. Then you have a copywriting job. But that's not how it works. That's not running a business. Your job is not doing the delivery of the work. Your job is running the business. And doing the delivery of the work is just one small piece of what your business requires in order for your business to hit the results that it needs to hit. So what I'm going to talk to you about today, and there's going to be a visual for this one. So if you're listening to this one on audio, I recommend that you go watch the video as well, because I'm going to show you a visual of how this works. I want to show you what all the roles are in your business. I want to show you how I really started to integrate this way of thinking, even while I was the one doing all the doing or most of the doing, and what happens when you don't do this. I think that from day one of your business, you should be thinking of your business this way, especially if you don't want to be doing all the doing forever. But if you're listening to this and you're thinking like, oh, it's no big deal, like, I don't know that I want to hire a team and all that, I need you to really listen to what I have to say, because I think you have some very serious misconceptions about what that means and where that's coming from, about what it's going to look like for you to have a well-oiled machine of a business, which you cannot have by yourself, even with AI at this point. Like, it's just not going to happen. So I want to talk about what it actually looks like to build a business, what the roles are, and the activity. This is like a game that essentially that I created to help to integrate this way of thinking for myself. So let's go ahead and dive in. Okay, so what this visual is showing you is it's an org chart, essentially. So if you've ever seen an org chart, you might be thinking that's way too corporate and way too fancy for you, but I need you to stick with me until the end of this, because I'm going to show you how this is going to change your life. I was out at a coffee shop with some friends last week, and I was working on my org chart, and one of my friends thought it was really funny that I have an org chart, and she's like, that's so fancy. I'm like, oh, I have an org chart from day one. Like, I could be in all the roles, but I need to know what role I'm in any given time, because if I'm mixing the roles together, we're going to have problems. And I'm going to talk to you about what I mean by that. Your business has 4 main functions. I've talked about this in other episodes where I talked about the time puzzle. So this is all integrated together. Okay. The first one is the CEO function. The CEO is all about the big picture vision, is like the driver of the bus, is the, conductor of the orchestra. This is the person who's got the big picture overview of everything that's going on. I think orchestra is a great metaphor or analogy for this. Okay. So this job of the CEO is to set the vision. What's the vision for the business? What are we trying to achieve? That's the highest level, and work that into goals, and then even work that into specific, like the business model and the offer suite and all of that. And then pass that on. It says project brief. Pass that communication on with the rest of the team, even if it's just you. But let me just explain to you the functions of this first, and then we can get into like what this actually looks like on a day-to-day basis. So the functions of the business, other than the visionary, are the marketing and sales department, the delivery department, and the operations department. The marketing and sales is everything about growth. Some people call this their growth department. So I want you to think of everything that happens in your business that is about visibility. Anything from visibility to sales, that end of the spectrum, is going to be in the marketing and sales department. Their job is to make money, to sell. That's the job. So the marketing is to get in front of more leads, bigger audience, and then eventually sell to them. That's why it's marketing and sales, right? Marketing is the visibility, the relationship building. Sales is the actual selling, okay? Converting people to buy from you. The second department is the third is the delivery department. Okay. This is everything about delivering your service. So when you're working in the delivery department of your business is when you're actually doing the work to deliver the service that your clients paid for. You can probably see at this point what I mean when I say that when you're just doing client work and you think that's your job as a business owner, why you are missing the whole point, because you're not even in the whole delivery department. You're in one aspect, one implementer role here. So let me talk about the implementer roles in a second. And then the final department here, so 1, 2, 3, we're going to call that 3 departments. And then the CEO visionary is the operations department. And this is everything that happens to make everything work behind the scenes. We're talking systems documentation, project management, customer service, tech, admin, all that, finances, that all happens in the operations department. Okay. So those are the 3 departments of your business. Now, every single department has a responsibility. The marketing department's responsibility is to hit sales targets. The delivery department's responsibility is to get results for clients. Okay. And do a great job delivering the service. And the operations department's responsibility is to make sure that everything is functioning smoothly and on time in the business. The CEO's responsibility is to set the course and communicate that and set the culture and the vision for the business. So there's going to be interactions between these departments. Now, that's not the only thing. There's also 3 levels, which is not on here right now, to the business. There's 3 important levels. This is what I want you to understand. It starts at the highest level with the vision. The vision turns into goals. That's the CEO. That the goals turn into projects, and that's the managing. And then the projects turn into actions. That's the implementing. And then we get to results. So that's how every role in the business leads to results. And then, so you understand the sort of the 2 different axes of this, right? The vertical and the horizontal. The vertical being, top down vision to results. You can see how each person is like helping to make that happen. And then horizontally, you can see how marketing, delivery, and operations and the CEO all interplay with each other. Okay. So those are the 2 main dimensions that you need to be aware of. Now, when I say there's 3 levels here, what I want you to see is that the 3 levels, I'm putting them over here, are actually vision, manager, and I'm going to say just like CEO. Okay. Manager and implementer. Okay. Those are your 3 levels of roles in your business. And you could be the only person in your business. And I want you to, if you're the only person in your business, you should only be the only person in your business for maybe 3 months. Like if we're not getting traction yet in 3 months, like we need to talk about it. Very soon in your business, we need to be hiring some support. And usually that's going to come in the operations department. That's a topic for another time. But like, I want you to understand, if you have been in your business for longer than that, if you've been in business for a lot longer than that, which is not uncommon, that's why I'm trying to shock you with these numbers, because this isn't talked about enough. People just go, yeah, I'm a solopreneur, as if it's like the greatest badge of honor. And I know anyone says that is in a prison of their own making. That like, you're not building a machine if you're working by yourself for that long. Your job as the CEO is to build the machine. That is your job. And if you are a solopreneur for a very long time, I know that is not sustainable. It's just not going to work. It's a job without benefits. It's not going to work. And I think that we don't talk about enough why it's important to actually build something, to actually hire a team, to actually look. That's not that scary. It's not that impossible, but we're so obsessed with our implementer jobs. You have in marketing, we've got our graphic designer, our copywriting, our delivery, whatever that expertise is, whether it's coaching or something else, you're doing a done for you offer. In operations is doing the customer service, setting up the tech, like all the things in your business. You're treating the implementer level as if that's the business. You're not even at the manager level, let alone the CEO level. And your job, if you're a business owner, is to build the machine. You don't have to make the machine make $1 million if you don't want to, but I think you should be looking at, if you were to make $1 million, where would it fall apart and what would it need to look like? Because if you're not aware of that, then you are not building a machine. You're not building it intentionally. You're building it reactively. You're in implementation. This is not your job. As soon as you can get yourself out of these roles, the better. Now, most people are very addicted to this role right here, delivery. Most entrepreneurs think that their job is delivering the service because this is the thing, the expertise, the commodified skill that you had that made you want to start a business in the first place. In one of my favorite books, The E-Myth Revisited, highly recommend, really, really, really drives the point home that I'm sharing here. It talks about this, right? He talks about this as the entrepreneurial seizure. It's like, we just go, oh my God, I'm gonna start a business. And we're like, I'm great at this thing. I'm gonna start a business doing that thing. And then we have this idea, it's not our fault that we have this idea, but we have this idea that means that I'm going to spend all day writing copy or designing websites or taking photos. But that's the implementer of the service. You might be in that role right now. I certainly am in my business, but that doesn't mean that is your number one job. Your number one job is building the machine. So you can intentionally stay in delivery. You can also experiment with, well, where's the capacity on delivery? Where might I want to hire I call them junior experts to come in and help you. You could do the first 10% of the delivery. They do the middle, 80%, you do the last 10%. Or in a coaching capacity, I have coaches in the past support clients, and then I'm at the higher level, and then I can come in and help people at different points. But the business is not relying on me as a personality in order to function. This is why I moved away from my coaching program, Courtney for a Quarter. I can't scale Courtney for a quarter. That can only be me. that was only packaged around getting time with me. That cannot work. So now we have the 6-figure sprint. So we have a system that we're selling, a process to produce a result that, yes, I am delivering on right now. And my plan is to do that for the foreseeable future. But I'm making that decision intentionally, not because I feel like I have to. And too many of you just have never considered hiring delivery. You'll consider a VA. You might consider going and getting marketing help. And oftentimes that's like, I'm going to get a website. I'm going to do these things, but you're not creating systems around these things, core systems for your business to do these things. But you just utterly assume that your job forever and ever is to deliver the service. And what I want to challenge you on today is to do a thought experiment on what if you didn't? What would it look like for you to not be the one delivering the service? And what comes up for you there? What is coming up for you, your thoughts and feelings about that? But then also, what would need to be in place in your business for somebody to do that? You'd probably need a team member to do that, to deliver your service, maybe more than one. Maybe it's a junior expert to do that. Maybe they're doing part of the process and you're doing the other part, right? We can do that slowly. But I want you to really think about what would have to be in place for me to not be in the delivery of my service anymore. Because if you are building your business around providing a service, but around you providing a service, you are building a prison. And you might decorate it and make it look nice, but it is still a prison and it is not a business. Technically, it's a business, but it's not a real business. It is not a real asset. It is way too dependent on you. And you know that. And you know that's risky. It's just that nobody has offered you an alternate path. It just sounds so scary when you're getting started, but it's really not. I had a conversation with a friend a couple of weeks ago who had booked out her business and was thinking about ways that she could be more efficient in delivering the service so that she could do it. And I was like, can we consider an alternative? That doesn't make sense because we're still optimizing for you. And that's not what the business needs. What the business needs is for you to be in marketing and sales. And that is your number one job. Your number one job is building. Your number 2 job is marketing and sales. Those are the last things that you should ever let go of in your business. Sales especially, and building. You can get marketing help, etc., but you have to be leading the face of the business on sales and marketing until that takes time to step out of. This one, delivery, takes less time to step out of. Even if you're a coach, one-on-one, you just have literally never even let the thought in your mind that your business could exist without you. And that is the problem. That is the problem. I want you to think about, and this is what's in the E-Myth Revisited, Michael Gerber says, what if you were to make a franchise of your business and sell it to someone that basically you're buying a series of processes and a structure? I can't do that if I have to clone you to do it, right? So nothing you do is so magical. Hear me out. Nothing you do is so magical that you cannot hire and train somebody to do it. So I was talking to this friend who thought she needed to hire like a high level expert to do it, but that person's too expensive, but like a low person I'd have to train. And I'm like, these things that we're all just counting out, hiring someone and training them are not as hard as everybody makes it out to be. But because so few people are willing to do it, there's few people teaching it, which is crazy to me. And we all talk about how we want to empower people and create opportunities and help our clients. But have you ever thought that a great way to do that is to actually build a team, give people roles and responsibilities, give them a job? Like, have we ever considered? I just don't understand why this has always acted like this is not the option. I don't want to hire a team. This drives me absolutely bonkers. Okay. So we have our CEO, our manager, and our implementer. You need to document what these roles are in your business. In your business, you might have different things in marketing. Maybe you'd have like a podcast editor or something, right? Like this is just an example for you to look at. But you need to identify what the implementer roles are, right? These are the doing. These are the tasks that happen and the role that would do that task. And then we move up to manager. The manager's job is to take the directives from the CEO. That's you. That's always you, unless you hire a CEO eventually, which you could also do, right? Let's just go there. And they take the directives. That's what it says project brief. If a CEO has a directive, they need to give a project brief to the manager saying, this is what I want it to happen. These are the constraints for that. Here's your directive. Here's the goal. Here's the resources I want you to use. And then the managers will meet who are affected, which is usually everybody, and a project will get created to implement the directive, okay? And then the project, the tasks, whatever, are going to get shared with the implementers. Too many times, you're sitting there. I've had this happen. This is when I had this wake up call that I had to create my little cards here. I'm going to get out for you, and I'll go back on camera to show you this. Too many times, I've been in a situation where I'm literally in the progress of writing a sales email. And in that moment, I'm like, you know what? I should change the price. Oh my God. That is so immature. That is not running a business. Because if I was an employee in a business, and this is the rule, when you are in an employee role in your business, you have to act like an employee. I would get fired. I would get fired doing that. This is a mindset shift. It's not holding yourself accountable. It's a mindset shift. When I'm the copywriter, my job is to take the directive and implement it. So if the directive is unclear, then I need to go into the marketing manager role and go, well, why is this unclear? Okay, well, I haven't decided some of these things that I would need to communicate with an external copywriter in order to be clear on what we need in the sales emails. So I do that. Then I go back to the copywriting role. If at the marketing manager level, it's unclear what the goals are, what we need to focus on, then I need to go to the CEO role and I need to decide that. So I can diagnose any problem in my business by figuring out where I'm stuck implementing. Wherever I'm stuck implementing, that is an indication that there's a problem in the manager role. And if I'm stuck there, then there's a problem in the CEO role. But you're not looking at your job, your business like that. So you're not doing these things separately. And so in the minute that you're creating a piece of content, you're making decisions about offers, and you can't be doing that. You can't be making decisions after decisions. You have to have structure. It's chaos. It's anarchy. The sooner you start to treat your business this way, the better. So let me show you how these cards work. 3 sets of cards here, and it might be backwards, and I apologize if it is. I can't. Oh, no, it's going to be fine. I have 3 sets of cards. So there's going to be the department is orange. The level of role, is blue. So department is orange. And then the phase or the level of that, we're going to call it the phase of that, is in purple. And I'm going to explain to you what each of these means and how I use them. So let's start with the department. Okay, so I only have the 3 departments because I don't, sometimes I consider CEO a department because it's one of the 4 main functions of the business. But when I talk about departments, I'm talking about your marketing, your operations, and your delivery. Okay, those, and you can easily make cards like this, pieces of paper, whatever you have, and I highly recommend it. And you are going to know that whenever you're doing something, a task in your business, you want to make sure you put face up what department that task is in, okay? All right, the second thing is our levels, okay? So we have CEO, we have manager, and we have implementer, okay? CEO, manager, implementer. In the E-Myth Revisited, Michael Gerber refers to these as I think the entrepreneur, the manager, and the technician. I like CEO, manager, and implementer. That's how I think about it, but it's the same idea, okay? So the CEO, I have written on the back of my card here, is dreaming and vision, is future-oriented, is all about the big picture, is here to lead and inspire the team, including all of your, split personalities when you're in different roles. Is an idea generator, is all about meaning and purpose and culture, is all about decisions about direction of the business. Not decisions about what social media strategy we're going to use, but decisions about the direction of the business. This is the captain of the ship who's like, we're going there. I'm going to make big sweeping decisions. And then my job is to manage all of the resources of the business, the machine, to build the machine so that it's creating the result. I'm not creating the result. The business is, okay? So then the next one is our manager. So our manager is all about efficiency of resources, planning, resource management, project breakdowns, training, delegating, systemizing, organizing, and decisions about strategy and plans and projects, okay? That's what the manager is all about. And then finally, we have our implementer. Our implementer is about executing, doing the task, skills, task-focused, deliverables, concrete actions, and it's just decisions about their own expertise in those constraints. So as a copywriter implementer, I would be, if I'm writing a marketing or an email, I'm going to be a marketing implementer as a copywriter. So I'm not allowed to make decisions about the plans and strategy and vision and direction of the business. I'm allowed to make decisions about what copy is going to do the best job because that's the expertise that I'm using in that role. Okay. Now the final group of cards that is a little bit, this is like the advanced level. Okay. The final group of cards is what I'm calling your phases or levels. Okay. And this is about if we're building a business that can function without us, what phase are we at with that right now? So for example, when we're doing, again, I like the marketing implementer of copywriter, right? I'm a marketing implementer, copywriter. If I'm in phase 1 of that in my business, then I am creating and establishing the systems in a way that works, but it's reliant on one individual and it might not be documented. So the task is getting done, but it's not systemized in a way that could be given to somebody else, right? It's not set up in a way that is like for the machine. It's set up for the individual. So that's phase 1. Okay. So if I'm just making up how to write a marketing email in my business, which I often do, then I'm in phase 1. If I'm in phase 2 of that task, I'm ensuring the operations, marketing, or delivery of this are being done in a consistent way, even if it's still manual or person dependent. So there's some kind of constraint on the consistency of that thing, that the emails are done to a certain standard, that we always do emails in a certain way. Okay. So there's some kind of standard. I'm not winging it by the seat of my pants, which is more phase 1. This is more like, okay, I've got a way that I do this. Like right now, I would say that my weekly content is a bit phase 2. I do it the same way. Actually, it might be phase 3 because I've documented a bunch of stuff now because I'm handing it over to my ops manager. But I do it in a consistent way, but it was very dependent on me. So we're moving right now from phase 2 to phase 3 in my content marketing. In phase 3, we are depersonalizing the implementing. So we're removing the you, okay, as necessary in that role and ensuring that the role is clear for that person. Okay, so we're ensuring that it's clear what the copywriter's job is, not what Courtney's job is. Do you see what I mean? Like we're making it role based, not person based. Okay. So right now we're going to have like streamlined stuff about the content creation, but it's still Courtney based. Some of it is actually going to be phase 4. So Courtney is removed, or the CEO, mine says Courtney because that's me, is removed from implementation and most management of it. Isn't necessarily having to manage the implementation. So you're leading, the main hat is the CEO. Okay. Whereas in phase 3, you're still like really managing it and making sure it's getting done. Once you're in phase 4, someone else is managing it. You're not even involved. Okay. All right. So we're getting there with some of the things in our weekly content, but not everything. So the way I use this is really interesting. And I really want you to pay attention to this. I started using these cards. I've done a version of this many times in the past for probably a decade, but I started using these in the summer of 2025 because my business had gotten to a point where there were too many tasks for me and to do in my role. So I needed to define, well, what is my role? What are all these tasks? Like what is going on, right? I need to take stock. But the other thing that was happening is that I was mixing and blending the roles together. So while I'd be writing that marketing email, I'd be making CEO level decisions. And then I was causing chaos for my ops manager because she's like, well, I thought we decided this and now you're doing that, because I was like, well, it's my business and I decided I want to do it differently now. But it's not about me. It's about the business. The business needs structure. And when I'm in a role, I have to make sure that I'm following the rules of that role. Okay. So what I started doing is on my desk in the morning, I need to start doing this again because I did it for several weeks and I haven't done it in a while. I will have these 3 piles of cards out, and at any given time, I will choose what cards represent what I'm doing right now. So right now I'm recording this video. This is also marketing. This is a definitely implementer role. I'm doing the doing, right? I'm executing the marketing. I'm creating the content. And I'm going to say we're kind of in phase 1 a little bit. Let's see. Phase 1 is create, it's reliant on the individual. There's some kind of standard, but it's reliant on the individual. Phase 2 is done in a consistent way, even if it's, I think I might be in phase 2. I think we're in phase 2. So right now, that's what I'm doing. Now, my question to myself then becomes, how do I take this task into phase 3? So phase 3 is going to be, I'm removing the person. The person isn't necessary. Now, that's going to be a hard one for this because I am probably always going to need to record the videos and whatnot. But if my business got to a point where I moved away from having a personal brand, then I could actually plug somebody else into this. I could also plug somebody into taking content I'm creating and repurposing it more so that I'm not we can leverage more out of what I'm creating. So that's a way that we could take this into phase 3. So that's an example of what that might look like. And what happens as you do this is you start to realize that you don't have a machine. You have a very reactive business. And so what this allows you to do, and my hope for you listening to this, is that you will create these cards for yourself. You'll create an org chart for yourself, and you will spend the next couple of weeks paying attention to what role you're in your business at any given time. You're watching this video, you might be in the CEO role, because I think any kind of professional development, learning and stuff is usually me in my CEO role about growing my business. I would consider this a CEO level video or podcast. So when I'm coaching my clients, I consider them to be in the CEO role, but I'm in the delivery implementer role. Okay. So you can see how, I'm just trying to give some examples so you can see how all of that works. And it helps you to take stock of all the things that need to happen in your business. I talk about this in the time puzzle workshop and also in previous posts I've done and episodes on the time puzzle. And I've got a great blog post where I break it all down into how you take the stuff from your org chart and then get it on your calendar. And so you know what your actual capacity is for implementing. So these two topics are very connected. And this helps me to start building an asset, building a business that could operate apart from me. I have no plans of not being involved in my business. I don't think that that's the level I want to get to, but I'm always doing the thought experiment and finding the places where my systems break down. Where would I not be able to scale? Where would the problems be? And what can I do to make sure that that part of my business, because it's going to be a limitation, is very systemized and tight, and it's clear what happens in that. So for me with the content creation, because I'm going to probably be staying in this role for a long time, we really need to make sure that it's clear what I'm doing there, because it could, balloon out and get too big, right? So this also tells me when I need to hire. When I'm feeling overwhelmed, I can see, well, what is actually on my plate and what actually do I need to hand over to someone? Because if you have an org chart like the one I showed you, and you get to a point where you don't have a VA and you want to hire someone, guess what? You basically already have a complete job organized for them, better than anyone who hires a VA, because everyone who hires VAs is so reactive about it that you can be so much more prepared and clear for that, knowing what you're going to hand over to that person, knowing what needs to happen in your business, because you've been doing that role and you've clarified the role and you've known because of your note cards when you're in the operations implementer role. So make sure that while you're fulfilling that role, you get out of phase 1 and you get it to phase 2, right? Where there's clear guidelines on the step-by-step of how you actually implement that role, so that when you are ready to replace yourself in phase 3, that you have it all ready to go. All right. That is the episode for today. I hope you enjoyed this one. I call this business philosophy. This is one of my favorite topics. Please drop your comments below the video. And if you are listening, again, instead of watching, go to find the video, because I think the visuals are going to be really, really helpful. And I will see you in the next one.